Hi everyone, and welcome to today's episode of The Soul Call with Kelly B. I'm your host, Kelly Butchert, and today I am thrilled to introduce our guest, Samantha Egan. Samantha is a seasoned practitioner with over 20 years of experience in holistic health, specialising in women's well-being. Sam is a registered classical homeopath with a wealth of clinical experience, including time spent in Calcutta, India, which I would love to hear more about. Sam currently operates a thriving private practice in Essex. And Sam's approach to healing is profoundly multi-modal. She is skillfully integrating a variety of tools and therapies, including energetic remedies, sound therapy, Reiki, sacred oils, meditation, breath work, and Indian scalp massage. Wow, quite a list. Sam's holistic philosophy also involves collaborating with other trusted practitioners to ensure a comprehensive and balanced approach to health. Throughout her career, Sam has been dedicated to guiding individuals toward their highest potential. Her work emphasises overcoming self-doubt, fear, and limiting beliefs to foster peace, love, wisdom, and personal sovereignty. She creates and holds healing spaces both individually and in groups, addressing mental health issues such as trauma, addiction, grief, and abuse, drawing on both her extensive professional background and personal experiences. Sam's passion for holistic health extends to using ancient and modern technologies to bring about healing and equilibrium. She believes in the power of unlocking our inner freedom and peace, and it is her deepest honour to assist others in this transformative journey. So, everyone, you will hear why I am so excited to be joined in conversation today with the beautiful Sam here, because we are going to get into speaking about how Sam got into all of this beautiful work, to hear about how the multimodal practice that she operates benefits so many people, and why, if you have not heard of any of these practices before, particularly homeopathy, you will definitely want to tune in and hear how these profound, beautiful practices can benefit your life in so many ways. So Sam, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's wonderful to have you here.
Hello, Kelly. Thank you so much. I'm so excited, and it's an honor to share this space with you and to share these beautiful healing modalities that we're all now using in this new world that we're creating. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's an absolute honor. Thank you so much for inviting me.
It's just wonderful to have you here, and I must give a shout out to the beautiful Emily Teague once again for connecting us, Sam. She is such a special lady, and Emily was a previous guest on my podcast as well. Now, I'm in the process. If anybody's looking for that episode, you might not find it because I've taken down a lot of previous episodes just now because I'm re-editing it with a new fresh energy. So they will be coming back very, very soon. And it's definitely one that you want to tune into as well. But today, Sam, where about in Essex are you? Because I know that Essex is a big part of the country. So let's just start with where you are in Essex. So
Yeah.
you know where to
Okay, so
start.
I'm in a place called Brentwood,
Ah,
Essex. So you may have heard
yes.
Towie. Yeah, this
Yes,
is where
of
a lot of
course.
Towie is filmed. So there's a lot of references to some of the places on the high street and the bars and a lot of the salons that they kind of talk about in the show. So I'm kind of just off the high street, and I'm actually I'm in between two conventional GP surgeries. We've got opticians. We're kind of like, we've got a nice little strip of healing practices and things like that. So
Amazing.
yeah, Brentwood, aka Burntwood, because it used to be called burnt wood back in the
Wow.
olden days. Yeah, it has got a
Now,
bit of a witchy connotation to it too.
yes, yes,
So
and I
I
would
love
love to
being
get
here.
into that as well, because we get really into sort of places, don't we, and the significance of energy and land and in place names and places and all of that too. So I would love that. Now, for some of our international viewers and listeners, they may never have heard of Towie. Now, in the UK, we've all heard of The Only Way is Essex. Can you just summarise very quickly for anybody that's thinking, what is Towie? What
Yeah,
is
so it
Towie?
kind of it's short for The Only Way is Essex, and it's I think it's about a group of, I don't watch it that often. My son and his girlfriend do, and my daughter do, but I don't. But it's about a group of people from the area, beautiful looking people. It's all about how they look, and I think they're all kind of entrepreneurial. It's kind of, it's, I suppose it's like Coronation Street for the Essex people. So it's like it's a bit like a reality soap opera, I'd say. That'd be the easiest way to
Yeah.
put it.
It's almost like the young team, isn't it? It's the young team in Essex. They're all very glamorous and beautiful, and they like a glamorous lifestyle. But there's obviously this other side of Essex as well. I mean, that's beautiful in and of itself, but it's not. I think people maybe make an association with Essex just being that now, and there's so much
Yeah,
more. Like you're talking about this beautiful part of Brentwood that you're in, where there are different practices all devoted to healing people. And
yeah,
let's just go back to what you mentioned there about burnt wood,
yeah,
because Brentwood used to be called Burntwood, as I've just learned, and as the viewers and listeners have just learned too. So we know, working with energy as we do, that there has been a lot of let's just go back. You mentioned the witches and the witch energy. So let's think about medicine in the days of old,
yeah,
medicine women, medicine men, and the persecution of predominantly women who were seen to be doing things that were against the church, against the patriarchal system, the religious system that was put in place. And so a lot of women went underground, didn't they, and hid away their talents and their skills of working in symbiosis with nature, working with plants and natural remedies, because, well, that was deemed to be spiritual and woo and magical and oh. But there was as we know, with the witch hunts, there was an agenda there. So, burnt wood, which is now Brentwood, I wonder if you could just talk into just a little bit, Sam, of what your feelings are about
mhm,
that, and how, you are honouring that in the work
yeah.
that you do, but also bringing in the modern way of looking at it all, because it's all healing, isn't it?
Yeah. So even going back to the show that we first spoke about, there's a lot of connotations about the women from Essex being a bit loose,
Mhm.
which is it was another kind of spur on what women were and what women were doing. So Burntwood, Brentwood, there we've got Thorndon Country Park, we've got huge woods here. So there would have been a lot of women that worked in healing, medicines within the forest, within the woods, that were often honest. They used to be banished to the woods, I think, at some stages, and go into hiding. So we've got a lot of areas in Essex, not just Burntwood, Brentwood, where I am, which this clinic here as well was a women's refuge. This used to actually be a women's refuge. So energetically, it's always been a really beautiful place for women to come for healing and for refuge. So I learned that after I came to the practice. We have other, practitioners here as well. So it's nice to be part of a team and not just completely solitary, but And then we have other areas as well. We have Manningtree, which we've got the Witchfinder General that comes from there. We've got Chelmsford, where a lot of the, I think there was courts and judgments and hangings and things like that were made in Chelmsford. We've got areas close to where I live, which is I'm close to a place called Mount Nessing. So we've got lots of ley lines. We've got ley lines that interconnect and things like that around there. We've got woods. We've got, you know, legends and stories of Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn and how he used to come here, because a lot of the practice in this area was very pagan.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore you've got lots of healing modalities that come alongside that. So, you know, looking at the medicine wheel, looking at the equinoxes and the solstices and all of those kind of aspects, a lot of that practice would have been done in this part of Essex. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting because we sort of spoke about the show at the beginning. It's that demonization again, isn't it? About what actually were very powerful women and men too, but generally, like you say, predominantly women, because it was, you know, it was, like you say, patriarchal. It was the church, it was industrialization, it was medicine, wasn't it? It was conventional medicine and all of those things. So in my, you know, my philosophy is I'm not an alternative therapist. I am a complementary therapist. So we can, you know, intertwine both modalities, because I think it's important that people feel that they don't have to do one or the other. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's kind of that's a bit about the history and a little bit about just me as a practitioner. But yeah,
I love how this is all weaving together, because, you know, many of us, certainly my personal belief is that a lot of what is projected on our TV is programming our mind. It's to control the minds of our young ones. And these beautiful souls that are on Towie, on The Only Way is Essex, we have got very strong, powerful young women on there who are being, I would say, certainly the media portray them as being, and I'm using inverted commas for those of you that are listening in and not watching me here on YouTube, but portrayed as dumb blondes, or that's a blonde thing to do. And it really, it's trying, in my opinion, trying to program youngsters to think that these young women are dumb, they're stupid, where clearly they're not. We are not. We are all one. And that's the point I want to stress as well. I feel that there are agendas behind a lot of things. You know, I'm accused of being a conspiracy theorist in my family, so and I'm quite comfortable with that, because I will always question things. I don't just go along with the narrative.
Yeah.
And it's a fun show, and it's great to see them having fun. But I know when I watch that program that I think it reflects back to me what I was like at that age. You know, I was young, carefree, didn't really get into spirituality. I started to delve into it in my early 20s and started to open up to energy healing, sort of mid-20s. But as we get older, it's almost like these packets of light unfold within us, our photonic light, and we start to radiate and remember and activate who we really are as a soul. And we get more and more curious about who we are and what we're here to do. So, you know, the days of going out, partying, drinking, which I did when I was young, and it was a great, great fun time back then, you know, Ibiza holidays and all the rest of it. I look back and I think that was all part of my journey, and that was great. But it's as we move through the years, if you like, and they go quicker than I would like them to, I have to say. I feel that there's this great revealing that's happening in so many of us. And I do wonder about some of these programs. You know, they're trying to dumb down the masses so that they stay programmed, they stay tuned into the TV. And what, of course, I wish to remind youngsters of, and I try and do this with my daughters, is that that's great, and that's part of our journey, and it's part of growing up and all of that. But there is deeper wisdom to all of us when we don't stay there. It's like, let's go deeper. Let's unpack this wisdom that's held within our DNA, that we are our ancestors. We have carried all of this earth medicine with us. And so let's remember that. So I would love if you could, Sam, to just share with us a little bit about your journey and how, you've gone from being, a youngster, and we're still young at heart, of course, and how you have, because you've been in the holistic field for 20 years, which is a
Yeah.
long time, and you've got all this wealth of experience. How did that journey weave in for you? Because I don't want to make any prior judgments here, but I would imagine that when you were young, you went out, you did what the young team are doing, and just, we all go through those initiations, don't we?
Yeah.
How then did that weave into you going to India and being where you are now and showing up as a homeopath and energy medicine practitioner?
Yeah, so for me, I definitely loved to party when I was younger, and I actually came from the East End of London. That's my background. So I'm not a true original Essex girl, and there's nothing wrong with that either, by the way. But I'm actually from the East End, and yeah, and I always had a wanderlust. So I loved to travel. 21, I kind of got my backpack that was bigger than me. If I stood up, I'd sort of fall backwards. And I did a lot of traveling, and I did a lot of traveling. I was with a friend at first, and then a lot of it was I was alone. And one of my first spiritual, if you like, awakenings then was I read a book, and it was called the Magus Ostrovolus. So I think that means like the Magi of Strovolus, and that was a place in Cyprus. And I read that book whilst I was partying and working in Ayia Napa.
Wow.
So that was my first awakening, and a lot of that was a lot of talk about vision questing and imagination and energy, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I was probably about 21 at this stage.
Yeah.
And then so that was my kind of first like real, and Cyprus has just such a deep place in my heart. Still to this day, I have a home in the north, and it's where I call it my Shangri-La. It's where my soul actually rests. So and that kind of happened at 21, and then I went off to Australia. I went to Bali. I went to Australia. I kind of then came back, and at 20, worked for a bit. I was a hairdresser. The therapy of the high street therapist, if you like, they call the hairdresser, don't they? So you hear everybody's problems. And I feel that was the empath in me. I felt like I would hear all their problems, and I wanted to do something to help. So that was kind of always in me. And then at 27, 28, I met my husband after traveling again and coming back. And then we had our son. And at that time, new parent, you don't know really, there's no book, is there? So you're kind of fumbling your way around this parenthood, thing called parenthood. So obviously, as a parent, you are conventionally asked to do certain things and give your child certain things. And it was that, like you said earlier, that conspiracy theory, innately in us, both my husband and I, let's research this a little bit. Let's look into, do we have, do these measures, conventional measures? And my son actually had an injection. I don't want to say too much. And he reacted quite badly. And at that time, it was just 3 in 1, 3. And I think now there are like, I think he's 7 in 1. Anyway, he had the first one and he reacted quite badly. He had a lymph node that came up on his neck. He had really high temperatures and convulsions. And at that moment, we were like, we're going to stop here and question everything, every single thing that goes into that beautiful being that we've brought into this world. We're questioning everything. And I then found a homeopath. we moved from the East End out to Essex, into the suburbs, if you like. And there was a card in a local greengrocer's for the local homeopath. And I was like, well, what is that? I don't even know what that was, let alone, I couldn't even pronounce it, let alone know what it was. And it was this beautiful lady, and I used to call her the White Witch, because she had white hair, wise old crone of a lady. And I took my son to her, and then subsequently took my daughter, and we were all, my husband and myself. And she just said to me, Sam, you've got such, I would say, well, what's that remedy for? And what does that do? And how does that work? And can you tell me more about it? And before I give it, have you got any books? Have you got anything I can read? Just like you said, these codes, I'm just lit up from the inside out. And I then realized that I didn't turn my back on conventional. I didn't say, right, I'm not going to do that and just cross my fingers and hope my children were going to be healthy. This is what I say to a lot of my patients. If you choose this, you're not doing that. You're doing something else. You've got the power in your hands. The power is in your hands now for your family. You take that responsibility wholeheartedly for yourself and your family for health. And she said to me, her name was Elizabeth Salter. And there was a funny connection, because her husband used to, back in, I think it was like the early 50s, used to bring prams over from abroad, and he had a pram shop called Salter's Pram Shop, which is where I lived in the East End.
Wow.
So you know how you say the weaving and the magic happens. And she said to me, Sam, you need to do this. I'm gonna give you some of my books, and you need to do this. And she did, part of her training was with an Indian homeopath. She went off to India, and so she sent me in the right direction. And at this stage, my daughter was now 2 and my son was about 4. And it's a college in Chelmsford, in Essex, called the Allen College of Homeopathy. And it was Dr. Banerjee is an Indian guy from Bengal, and his wife run this beautiful college. And it was a bit of a funny time. My mum was actually diagnosed with cancer at this time as well. So it was a funny time for me, really. I had young children. This was going on with my mum. But it was my saving grace. I truly believe that it was my saving grace, because I just learned so much. And part of the course was to go to India. And to prescribe in the Calcutta slums, and just that's kind of like how I kind of got to that point, really. And he was 5th generation homeopath, so there was 5 generations, and they were all trained as conventional doctors, as they often are in India first. So you'll often find that in India they're doctors. They're called faculty doctors, they're doctors, and they're also homeopaths at the same time. So again, it's that integration, it's that integrated science, that integrated medicine.
Yeah.
And I remember being at the college in Calcutta, and there was a book, and it was like one of these very, like a magical spell book, huge, about that thick, of what they call clinical tips. So you've got 500 years, you've got 5 generations of clinical tips of what remedies do what, through generations. And that's what they taught. They taught you the classical foundations first. So that's kind of keeps you grounded, the classical foundation. So we have to do 4 years of medical science. We have to do, which is all about anatomy and physiology and about the body. So there's no woo-woo stuff to homeopathy.
Grounded.
We do 4 years of philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
We do 4 years of what they call materia medica. So that's all the medicines. So we've got nearly 4,000 remedies, if not more now, because more and more are happening all the time to choose from. And the way that he taught, Sabrata taught, was he taught you 50 polycrests. So and you learn them and know them like a mother knows her baby.
Wow.
So it's keynote, a lot of it's what they call keynote prescribing. So it's just, I often say to people, they ask me, what is it that you do, or you know, what are you? And I say it's not what I am, it's kind of who I am, you know. So yeah, that's kind of, I could talk all day. You'd have to tell me to shut up
Oh,
and stop.
we are definitely going to hear more about this. Do you know, I'm just reflecting as I'm hearing your story. This is always what happens with me, Sam. This is why I love, love, love doing this podcast, because I love to hear about how people's lives have been woven and how we have. I truly believe that everything's divinely orchestrated. So we are co-creating a reality. So the divine, you know, God, source, whatever you want to call that, universal intelligence, is playing with us, you know, keeping us on that path. And we think we're awful clever. We go, oh my goodness, how has that landed in my path? But it's up to us whether we have divine will, whether we pay attention and we step into the signs and that are coming along the pathway. And I just love, like, listening to your story is even allowing me to go back as well when you talked about your son and the adverse reaction he had and how that led you to seeking out homeopathy. You'd never even heard of a homeopath, didn't even know how to pronounce it, you said, but you went with your motherly intuition and that guidance. You know, there was that universal intelligence saying, here's a shiny thing, look this way, you know, like, oh. And you can't actually describe then how our lives map out. It's just so wonderful. And it's taken me back to when I had my first daughter. She was in emergency section. She was an undiagnosed full breech, so her wee feet were up in front of her face. So she came out the sunroof, as I say, you know, it was a cesarean section. And obviously it was traumatic for her and I. And prior to me having had her, I had discovered Reiki for the first time. And I know that you are a Reiki practitioner as well. Now, I don't do Reiki so much now. I do other healing modalities, but it was an introduction. It was that doorway for me into what energy healing was. Well, crystals was my first introduction, and I've spoken about that in another podcast episode. But Reiki for me was experiencing this energy medicine, this healing modality that I'd never experienced before. And it was a lady called Susan King who lives locally to me. Beautiful soul, like an old crone, just a wise woman with lots of wisdom. She just fascinated me. She still does. And she spoke to me about my spirit guides and things like that. And it was all of this stuff I'd never experienced before. But then once I'd had Anna, Susan moved house and she moved to a street called Gallow Hill Wynd. And when you think about the witches and the gallows, because there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of witch hunts that happened in this part, the central belt of Scotland in particular, in the UK. And she then was working in Gallow Hill Wynd. And I took Anna along because Anna was very colicky. She wasn't settled. Obviously, it was a traumatic birth. And she did craniosacral therapy on myself and on Anna. Now, I could feel the benefits of craniosacral therapy. It was incredible, so powerful. But to watch her holding my little baby on her arm and just the gentlest, gentlest of movements, hardly any movements at all. And I remember she had a massive eruption, like it was out the nappy, it was everywhere, almost immediately. And she said, oh, that's her shoulder released now. I could not believe it. And the what had happened was she was communicating with Anna, and Anna was telling her, like telepathically on another level, a soul level, that her shoulder had really, they really tugged on her shoulder when they were bringing her out. And this is why she wouldn't settle. She was in a lot of pain. And so she released that from her shoulder and then she had this massive eruption. It was like this purging of the trauma. It was incredible to watch. And so isn't it so beautiful when I had never heard of Reiki until I went to Susan. I'd never heard of craniosacral therapy until she introduced me to that. You'd never heard of homeopathy. And there we are, using our motherly instinct, our natural intuition to lead us to these crones, these wise women that are just waiting to pass on their profound knowledge, wisdom, and teachings. But it's
Yeah.
ancient, ancient wisdom that's being passed down lineages, and it's in our DNA. So I absolutely love that you're reminding me of all of that through your story. We all have our unique stories, just like the listeners that are, tuning into this. They will have their unique stories, and I hope that what it's reawakening for them is, so when I go back and think about how that person came into my life, yes, that was divinely orchestrated, and there was a reason for it. And so there may be a returning for some of our viewers and listeners who maybe haven't picked up the clues that were there for them. It's like, go back and really listen to what your heart, what your soul is telling you about that situation. Were you shown that for a reason? So coming back to your unique story, Sam, and how that beautiful white witch, that beautiful lady with that incredible wisdom, then opened up your world of remembrance, because clearly she was there to activate you, to help you to remember the medicine woman within you. And then that led you on this journey of what you've shared about, going to India and learning about these incredible, incredible, what did you call them? Polycrests.
But yeah, they're polycrests there's 50 main polycrests in the materia medica. We have thousands to choose from. I mean, we have repertories like this thick and materia medicas, which is why my eyesight's not great anymore, because of the years of looking at these old, and I love a book. I think that was another key for me. It was like these books that smell like, the gold, red or green with the gold writing, the bound books that you open, and the smell of old books, and all of that was kind of another element to it as well. But that was kind of the basis of their teaching, was the polycrest. However, it was because it was very clinical based. It was sound, it was scientific, it wasn't hairy fairy, for example. It was based on, because they're proving. So that's how we know that remedies work, because we give the remedy to a healthy human, not a kind of lab rat or animal or anything like that. And this healthy human continually takes the remedy until they have what they call a proving, until there are certain symptoms, and they're all documented and listed, and that's kind of, that's how, I mean, I don't know if you know how homeopathy works. So it works on the law of similars.
I would like you to get into that for us, Sam, because there will be some people tuning in that know a lot about homeopathy, and there will be some people like myself that know a tiny little bit. And I can't wait to work with you. I'm going to find out a lot more. And there'll be some people that are tuning in that I've never heard of homeopathy before. So I'd love for you to get into how it actually works with our bodies. And I say bodies for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. So it works on the law of similars. So it's a natural law. It's similar treats similar. That's kind of the essence. That's what most people understand. The way in which the remedy is made, it's not just made directly from the crude substance, because we do use some very strange and wild and wonderful things, like spiders, snake venom. But we couldn't give that, or deadly nightshade, for example. The remedy belladonna is made from deadly nightshade. Now, if you were to take deadly nightshade, you'd obviously die. So therefore these crude substances, Hahnemann is one of the most famous homeopaths that people kind of know about, which is Samuel Hahnemann, which was a German physician. who kind of first, started looking into these things, and he then realized that they would have to be diluted until there was almost nothing left in them. So then you then bring in, and not only were they diluted, there was another method called succussion. So they were shaken, okay? So they're diluted until there's almost nothing left in them. So they're called centesimal, or, you sort of the C scale, for example. So that works on Avogadro's, law, numbering system. So it's basically diluted until there's almost nothing left in it but the memory in the water, for example, and then it's shaken. So science is kind of catching up with us a little bit now. I feel like it's the other way around. There was a lot of years that people poo-pooed it and, said that it was a pseudoscience and how could it possibly work? But we now know that water holds memory.
Yes, it does.
And there's a lot of work on that now, isn't there?
Yes,
so you've got the imprint of the remedy, or the essence of the remedy, in the water now. And then that is then given to the body. We're 70% water anyway. So it doesn't have to go through the digestive tract, for example. It can saturate and permeate every single cell of the body. So you've now got this diluted, energetic, potentized power. Potentization, potency means power. Powerful, similar, treat similar. Then the body's now it's going along for years. This is kind of how I sort of say, showing you this symptom, showing you that symptom, and you might just ignore it. Might start with a headache, which might mean that what's happening around me, I'm kind of ignoring it, and then I might go to sinuses or something, and where am I being suffocated? So we also work with metaphysics, right, as well. So we listen to the body. Then it might go to, I'm getting lots of sore throats, and now I'm suppressing it, and now I'm showing you it's now in my lungs. And I might suppress it. So therefore, what we then do, we listen to the body, we're using metaphysics, we then look at remedies, similar, treat similar. And then by giving that back to the body goes, she's listening, he's listening, hurrah! That's kind of how I say it. And therefore, there's a healing that is, mechanism that is kind of ignited within the body, because it's giving it back a little bit of the same symptom to what the body is producing, rather than keeping it quiet and suppressing it. Yeah, and suppressing it. So kind of I'm trying to do that as much as I can in really easy layman's terms of how it works. It doesn't just work with find the right remedy and give it. So I often hear people say, I get, for example, chronic migraine. What can I take?
Me. I suffer from chronic migraine.
Yeah,
example.
As an example, but we can't do it like that. So we have to then, so the other part of homeopathy, and this is often as well, so there's the magic within that itself. But then the other part of the magic is time, and taking the case as completely and thoroughly as we can in the individual, really finding out about the individual. What foods do you like? Which position do you like to sleep on in the bed? Are you a hot person? Are you a chilly person? So we really individualize, and we unravel your case, we unravel your story, we kind of get to the root cause. There's something called an anamnesis that we use a lot, which is a funny word, and it's like a bridge. So it could be that, I don't know, when my dog got run over, for example, like an emotional causation, everything changed. When I moved to Australia, everything changed. So then we do this anamnesis, we do this life story, we do a head to foot physicals, we do, as much as we can about you. And that's what gives us the simillimum. That's what gives us similar, treat similar, with all of these tiny little provings that are done over years of the medicine being taken. I'm just so passionate about it still to this day.
Oh, you can tell. It's so fascinating, absolutely fascinating, because it's the opposite of what, I say traditionally, that's maybe the wrong word to use, but your average person would do. They would normally avoid the thing that's causing them the issue, or what they think is causing them the issue, or what's causing the symptoms. So we try and avoid, or we suppress the emotions that may be being communicated in our body, whereas what you're doing is saying, no, this is your body communicating to you. Your physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental bodies are communicating something to you. So I truly believe the physical body's never, ever working against you.
No,
It's always, it's
absolutely.
a communication system, and it's telling you, look here, look here. So it's, when you think again about divine orchestration, we have been made like, we're just incredible beings, aren't we? We're absolutely incredible beings. So it's important that we get naturally curious with the mystery of who we are. And this is also the opposite. And I know that I want to acknowledge the fact that we had a brief conversation before we press record today, and I had said alternative therapy, and you said, no, 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 it's complementary therapy because it sits alongside, what we have in allopathic care. And I totally agree with that 100%. And I think that's a really important point you made. But if you think about going to the GP, you get 10 minutes if you're lucky, if you're lucky enough to get an appointment. You're in, you're out, and I'm not speaking for every doctor here because, I've had amazing experiences with doctors, but then I've had a lot of really, what I would say, are duff experiences, like I've just been dismissed or sent away with a quick fix. And that quick fix for me was never going to treat my postnatal depression, was never going to support me with trauma that I'd experienced in my life. A 10-minute appointment with a GP, and what can they offer for my migraines? Beta blockers. At 27, I was offered beta blockers, and I said, no, thank you. So then, where do we go from here?
And I think,
Nothing
Kelly,
else
that's
we can
because
offer
the
you.
system is so big.
Over.
The system,
Yes.
there's so they have, I feel they have like a belt and braces approach. They'll send you away. They'll know you're going to kind of feel better, but it won't get to the root cause because the system is so big. How could they?
Yeah.
We spend an hour and a half minimal in your first consultation, 40 minutes for follow-ups.
Yeah.
How could they do that with so many hundreds of thousands of people?
I know. It's not possible, is it?
No.
And I think when you're going in and, I know what it's like. I rarely go to the GP, but I'm sitting thinking, right, how can I summarise really quickly what it is I want to say? Because actually, it's often been that there's been weeks of a build-up or months of a build-up before I will actually go and
For
see a
years.
doctor. Or years. And so you're like, right, how do I summarise this? And, 10 minutes so that the doctor's getting an overview of what's going on here. And then very often what they're offering you is just a sticking plaster, or it's like when it's depression, for example, a lot of people suffer from depression or anxiety, and you're offered antidepressants. I mean, rarely are you offered complementary therapies.
Yeah.
There are some GPs obviously that are doing amazing things, and they are doing some complementary therapies themselves, but this is where I am so passionate about energy medicine, and this is why I got into it myself. And this is why, I'm inviting people like yourself, Sam, onto my podcast so that people know that people like you exist and that have incredible depths of wisdom and knowledge and lived experience, who will take a lot of time and care to go really, really into the holistic picture of what is going on for someone. So I'm loving what you've shared, because I really do feel that, ethically, you're not poo-pooing GPs or anything like that. You're saying, no, 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 we can sit alongside each other. There's a place for everything. There's also the ancient meets the modern. So, it's like we're taking all the ancient wisdom, and all of that we carry within our DNA, and we're bringing it forward in a modern way. So I would love if you could to give us like an example of, if I was to come in and say, I've got like migraine, for example, that first consultation, you've said that you go into somebody's, you know, experience of what may be causing that. So I would imagine there's a lot of natural questioning, curiosity about various different things. And then how do you then take that forward? Is it remedies that people are given? How does that all work?
So if you, for example, if you came in for the migraine, we would, first of all, we would unpick the migraine. We would ask when it first started, so the onset. We would ask what we look at modalities. It's really, really important. So what makes it worse and what makes it better? That's how we individualize the case, because in migraine, there will be symptoms that will be common for most people, but then we need to find out what makes it individual. For some people, they might have a migraine and they maybe need to go into a nice dark room and be in the quiet. Somebody else might want to go for a run in the fresh air. So we start to unpick and unravel what makes it individual in the person. So we ask those sort of questions. We then would then say, okay, that's the migraine aspect, but let's find out about the rest of you now. And then we would then ask like a head to foot, and we'd also then find out if there was anything emotional. Or any traumas, or going back to that anamnesis, going back to that bridge, when was the onset? So you might come with migraine, and often people come with one thing, and then once we start talking and you start going through the body, we might say, oh, well, yeah, then I've had recurrent tonsillitis ever since I was 12. Oh, okay, I've had, I've got stomach issues when I eat a certain food or something like that. It triggers this in me. So we kind of then, that's what makes it individual, and that's what makes it kind of holistic. So the remedy wouldn't just be chosen because it was a migraine remedy. It would, we'd first of all start on your constitutional. That's how because I'm classically trained, that's my go-to first. So I'm going to work on the whole. I'm going to improve the immunity. I'm going to say to the body, hey, I'm listening to the whole of you first. And then once you would come back for your follow-up, then I might add in things like tinctures or tissue salts or something like that, which will then start to really, hone in on just the migraine, for example, because we're unraveling more and more of the modalities. Oh, I realize it's when I've been reading for too long, or I realize the more, I think the key is about embodiment. So very, very often, like you say, we don't recognize certain triggers or symptoms in our body and connect the dots to what's going on the outside. And the beauty for me with homeopathy is it literally has the power to go back through your history, through time and space. So for example, most people have heard of arnica. Oh, yeah, I know homeopathy. I know it's arnica. Everything's arnica. Now, arnica is a fabulous first aid remedy, yes. So it's for bruising, isn't it? People know it's for bruising, for bumps and bruises and things like that. But arnica is a huge trauma medicine. So we have remember when we spoke about potency, so we have the power literally to go back in time. I've never been well since the trauma of XYZ 20 years ago, so we literally start to unravel the story of the body. Really, the story of the body is
I love that. And you've said that you can go through, space and time. So I'm imagining this is like multiple lives as well. So do you work with the soul, as in we can go through different timelines, like different lifetimes?
Yeah, I use also the meditatively proved remedies. So they are a little bit more spiritual, I suppose, because the way in which they were proved on healthy humans, but they were proved in a meditative state. So therefore, then you then start to travel through space and time. So then we have lots of, the gem essences. We've got the rose quartzes and the sapphires and the rubies, and, really like beautiful, beautiful remedies where we are literally traveling back in time or forward in time sometimes.
Yeah.
And another aspect of homeopathy is we look at miasms. So Hahnemann realized there was a point in which remedies didn't work so well. So there was a block maybe, or a groove, or a taint. So this could be, we can then go back to our ancestral healing. Things that have been suppressed and kept quiet through the ages are laying dormant somewhere and causing a bit of havoc. So then we start to say, well, we can literally change the soil. I say to my patients, we can change, imagine yourself as a tree, and imagine that soil's a little bit yucky, and like like when you plant your flowers in the spring, you might want to put new soil in, you might want to feed the soil. So then we can also have remedies which are more like no-sodes or miasmatic remedies, where we are literally feeding the soil. So now the tree, this is why it's beautiful to have children and babies treated homeopathically, because the soil it starts off nice and rich and nutrient ready for life, really.
I love that analogy. That's amazing. I love how you've explained it all, Sam, because I've learned so much. Even the little bit I knew about homeopathy, I'm just wanting to learn more and more and more. It's incredible. So when people come to work with you predominantly in your clinic, is it predominantly homeopathy that you offer, or do you bring in other energy therapies?
It's predominantly homeopathy, but with my, obviously, and that's my classical training, and I'm so thankful and grateful that I was trained with solid foundations. So that gives me my solid foundations that I then was able then to go off and learn some Reiki, learn some sound healing, maybe learn some sacred oils. So they're coming predominantly with the homeopathy, and then maybe the next session. So I'm now already, I've always been quite intuitive. Even as a child, I was very intuitive. I would hear things or smell things or see things and think, well, they're not there. I'm not, am I going mad? And so then by the, maybe intuitively I'll start to tune in whilst they're there, and then I might get them to work with a sacred oil with me, and then we start to maybe release emotions and that kind of thing. So that kind of, so it's predominantly it's the homeopathy, but I feel like the rest is kind of like a bolt on from that solid foundation, because I'm what they call is, more like clairsentient. So if, for example, I would be already having the headache before you come in. I'm like, oh, this one's coming with the migraine, I have to sometimes say, turn it down. Okay, I get it. Or
I'm the same.
I'll be sitting there, have you got, and I'll say, have you got gut problems? How do you know that? I can feel it. So that's kind of, that's so the essence of my core is homeopathy, and that allows me, I feel like I can fly off here, there and everywhere energetically with other things. And and like you said, multi-modality, because I'm in the clinic here. We've got acupuncturists, we've got like a beautiful bone therapy lady, we've got talking therapies. And you mentioned Emily, for example, with the EFT. And I think, I can really get, I always feel like once the remedies are really starting to unravel, then working in a multi-modality approach, because sometimes some remedies take longer to get going, or the constitution might be slower, or for example, you go, well, then let's bring in some other modalities to really empower the patient along the way.
How amazing. I wonder if you can just recall like a case, for example, where it's blown your mind. You know how we all have cases where we're like, wow, this client's came in with this as an issue, we've worked through what it is, and then this is the end result. Is there anybody that sticks out just now that you can maybe...
Do you know, Kelly, every case feels like that for me. I've got to
be
perfectly honest with you. I can't think, not because there isn't one, because they're all, every single one of them is like that. Not for me, but for them. I mean, I think as well, it's about creating that space. So a lot of my patients will walk in and I say to them, because I do some womb healing and things like that. So I say, come into my womb, into my room, like a little old witchy lady. And they just say, when we come in, the smell, just the way, straight away, I just feel like it's about bearing witness. It's about bearing witness to that soul. It's about bearing, that person on every level. Sometimes you might come to the end of the case taking, and they say, "I feel so much better already." You don't even. I've got I may have like 4 remedies, and I say similar treat similar. Remember, it's not same treat same. So I've come to the conclusion that any of these 4 are going to really do you good. So I feel energetically probably giving them the remedies, because then I start to negate which one, comparing, contrasting. And I've not even given it, but I think etherically I've probably given it. And they're like, "Do you know, I feel better."
You're on the frequency of it. Yeah, just
the frequency, the vibration.
I love that. I love that. And I'm
So I
drawing so
can't
many
really give
parallels.
you a case. I'd like to, but
Do you know, I love that though. I love that. I mean, this is the thing. It's like, it's one of these, when my clients say to me, what am I going to be like at the end of this, working with you, and I'll say, well, everybody's so unique. And it wouldn't be right for me to say either, but it's part of the journey. It's like you have to go through the journey as well and experience it. It's an experience, isn't it? And that's the difference, I think, too, with allopathic care. You'll go in and they'll say, right, this should make you feel better, by such, it's all very prescriptive. It's like, it won't work for 6 weeks, and then you should feel, and then you should stop. And whereas this, it's more open-ended. It's a journey that you're taking with the essences, with the, even just being in the vibration of, when you're speaking the words, people are already feeling better. Because I truly believe that healing is it's a self-made job, isn't it? We heal ourselves, and so we're obviously following our guidance. It's going back to what I was saying earlier. It's following the things that come on your path. So if somebody's feeling the call to come and work with you, to step in, they're already healing themselves. They've found their way to you, and then they're being assisted by these incredible essences. It's like the healing journey's begun even before they've started to take it. I just find it all so incredible and so fascinating.
I think when it becomes tangible, I think probably what you might be asking me there is when things are maybe tangible for others. So, for example, if I've had cases which are eczema, maybe psoriasis, which you're literally looking at the skin, you can see it with your own 2 eyes, I suppose.
No denying.
You can't deny it. That's the magic. Or high blood pressure, for example, and we're literally watching it go down because we're unraveling what the root cause of that is. I suppose that's, if you're asking me sort of tangible or recurrent, I don't know, bronchitis in a child that comes to me at age 7, and every year, every winter, and then all of this, not all of a sudden, but after working with them, that's no longer apparent and that's no longer there. I think that's probably one of the things you're kind of asking me, and I feel that that's in homeopathy. It's very tangible because we're doing the classical foundation, the science, the body, the anatomy, physiology, and all of that. And I often talk about, nutritional supplements and the gut health, and all of this kind of comes into it, as opposed to when it's just purely emotional. And again, you see the beauty again there, or depression, or for example, or, somebody who might be agoraphobic or have severe anxiety, and you watch it, unravel and have the changes that happen. And I think because another huge part for me is describing. So you are the scribe, so that's an ancient wisdom, isn't it? That's an ancient thing. So we as homeopaths, we are taught classically that we are the unprejudiced observer. So we say initially, I'm sitting here and whatever you say to me now, there is no judgment. The more honest you can be, with your case, the better. And we are literally trained and taught to write every single thing down that you've said. Hence why I've got tennis elbow a little bit at the moment, or type it. I'm a bit old school. I like paper. I like I like books. I like paper, but so it's that, isn't it? It's that keeping a record. It's that bearing witness. It's that when they come back in again, saying, well, remember when you said this? And they're like, I'd even said that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
taking that time with
Yeah.
that patient.
Amazing. Absolutely love this. I cannot wait to experience some of this for myself very soon, Sam. I'm
Yeah,
so excited. So we're going to get dates organised, and I
yeah.
really, really want to encourage people to explore this for themselves as well. So do you work remotely at all, Sam, or is it just in your clinic?
No, I do. I do work remotely. I have global patients. I work via Zoom or WhatsApp video, or and then I can post remedies as well. I can send them in the post. That's,
Fabulous.
yeah. And
Fabulous.
I think for me moving forward, for me is what I would love is I would love the younger generation to realize that this is a career choice. Because
Now, this is what I
that
was going to come
nursing,
to.
or yeah, this is I want to be a homeopath. I want to be.
Yeah,
This is an actual
yeah. Mhm.
viable career
Yeah,
choice.
yeah,
That's what I would love to see.
yeah. And a very important one. And that was this. I'm so glad. I think you're tuning into me. I'm so glad that you've come to that point so succinctly as well, because having worked in education for such a long time, that's like a classic question you would ask children,
Yeah.
what would you like to be when you're older? I, in my 22 years, never heard a single child say, I want to be a homeopath. Now, wouldn't it be amazing if we had
Yes.
a world like that where we are no longer blinkered and limited by the choices that have already been laid down for us? Because, again, going back to agendas by governments, they're wanting to see certain people going into certain industries, and when I stand back as an observer to education, I can see it all very clearly. They're trying to, you know, move the workforce into certain directions, and it's placing limits. And I think this is why my
Yeah.
girls struggle so much with what do I want to do, in the world. And what I've tried to do is open their eyes to the world and the infinite possibilities that are available. And if we had more homeopaths and energy medicine workers who are alongside, complementing what's already in place, just
Yeah.
like that beautiful part of Brentwood that you're in, and in that clinic, you've got all these different therapists. We have choices for people, we have options, and that's empowering for people as well, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
giving them back
Absolutely.
their power. They have autonomy over their own bodies, so that we're no longer victims to the NHS and the UK that is like completely buckled,
Mhm.
because there is so much need. There is so much need. But what the other point I want to make here as well is it's by being proactive and taking your power back and working alongside somebody like yourself or myself doing energy medicine, homeopathy, that you're not waiting until it's really bad and then your only option's the NHS because you're so ill that
Yeah.
it's like, you need to be there because you're so ill. You've been rushed into hospital. So it's about keeping ourselves well whilst we are well, listening to
Yeah.
the body when there are signs and not leaving it too long. Would you agree
And
with
not, I would
me?
absolutely agree, and not suppressing it. And I've seen, in because I've been in practice for quite some time now, I have seen massive jumps and leaps and changes. Whereas before, at the very beginning, the homeopath would be the person that you would see because everything else had failed.
Mhm.
And then and often by then you may have been on conventional medications which have their side effects. So that takes a little bit longer because that's what we call one-sided chronic case. So
Yeah.
then you're then maybe thinking about trying to wean the patient off of certain things so that you can get to the root cause. That used to be very much so 10 or so years ago. But now I get so many new mums that bring new babies that come when they're pregnant before the babies. It's like, it's definitely changed. It's definitely changing. And even Essex itself, there are so many of us holding circle now. There are so many of us that are doing group healings and things like this. I know you mentioned, like, Emily again, but there's so many of us now in Essex that it is changing. I really do feel like it is changing. So we just got to get into the education side now and say, come on,
we do.
you need to
It's like a changing of the guard, isn't it? It's like the divine feminine's coming back. It's the great returning of the grandmother energy, the divine feminine, the wise woman, the medicine woman. It's like, and not just women. I think women are going to lead the way here as we go into this new age, but it's the mothering of ourselves, the deep nourishment and the nurture, and the analogy that you use with the soil. It's like, we need to make sure that all the basics, the foundations, all the nutrition, the nourishment, everything that the mother would do for her baby, for her child, it's all there. We're bringing everything back to love, aren't we?
Absolutely.
And leading with love, leading with the heart rather than with the head, because that's got us into trouble for too many years. It's like, let's bring back the Divine Mother in all things. I just love that. So let's hope.
I think as well, Kelly, two things, because I bring meditation in. So sometimes things may be traumatic to go back to or to speak about, or they may have even been forgotten.
Yes.
So that's where the beauty of meditation can come in. And also, secondly, I think one more thing I'd like to add is it's about empowerment. It's not, I don't want to ever feel that they come to me for it.
Yes.
So I teach workshops. I have lots of mums that come, and I do like the first aid courses with them. I then put them on a group where they're on the group together, so that they can chat amongst each other. So we're building communities. Like, how we often say, let's have these healing centres and build these communities. My feeling is we're already doing it. We don't have to wait for this great big one to pop up out of nowhere. We're already here. We're already building. They're not communities that you literally have to go in and live off grid. They're communities that we're already building those communities. On the chat with my mums, they're all, I allow them to feel empowered with what they've learned, to take that away, to give that to their children themselves, and not just think, I better call Sam, or let me find out what Sam says. So I think I just wanted to end on that, because I really do feel that that's the future.
I think that's a beautiful point, an absolutely beautiful point. And that's exactly my philosophy as well. I don't want anybody ever to rely on me. It's like when they come to me, say for silent counselling, I give them the tools and techniques to use when they go away, so that they're not relying on me. It's like, you can now apply this, you can share this, you can show each other. And I think that's such a beautiful thing that you've said. It's like this, it's the passing down, it's the remembrance of wisdom, because we've all created it together through multiple lifetimes. So we're just here to reactivate each other, aren't we? It's like there's no hierarchy. It's I'm here to share, and I know that everybody tuning into this today, Sam, will feel your heart and your passion and all of what you've shared. I think it's so incredible what you're doing, being this incredible way shower, this leader of love, and sharing it so beautifully to empower others to then grow that. It's that ripple effect, isn't it? It's like, let's spread it everywhere. Let's now, and that's how we change the world. That's how we change the world. It's so, so beautiful.
From the bottom up.
From the bottom up.
From the bottom up now, not the...
I honestly can't thank you enough for coming on today to share all of this. I could talk to you forever, Sam, as you know. As you know. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I would love if you could just to share a little bit about how people can find you and how they can step in to work with you, whether it's in person or remotely. And if you've got a website, social media links, etc. We're going to drop it all below this episode anyway, but how can people find you?
Do you know, I think the easiest thing to do is Google. I always say to people, I honestly say that to people, right? Because you've got different generations that are not that au fait with technology.
Yeah.
So I think, you know what, Google, find a homeopath Brentwood, everything comes up there. From there, you've got the Facebooks, you've got the Instagrams, you've got the websites. Just Google me.
Oh, amazing, amazing. So I will put the links down below as
and I will
well
give you the links.
Amazing. Sam, thank you so, so much for your time
Thank you,
today.
Kelly. It's been
really,
amazing.
oh, loved
So
having
easy
you
to
on.
talk to. You're lovely.
You're so, so kind. And I know that you're going to awaken and open so many hearts. And as I say, I can't wait to step in and work with you. Oh, we will speak soon.
We will.
Take care.